Hi there, podcast and public radio fans. Heath Drusen here, host and creator of the Extremely American podcast. I'm working on season 3, which is an urgent story about neo-Nazi terrorists and how they helped build a modern white supremacist movement, even from prison. Some of their ideas have even made it to today's White House. It's both a gripping true crime story and a timely warning about threats to our democracy. And this time, my investigative reporting is funded by you. To support the project, please make a tax-deductible contribution at extremelyamerican.org. That's extremelyamerican.org. And thanks.
More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. You know, most of us have had a summer we'll never forget. And in Darby Bozeman's debut novel, Summer's Never Over, that is especially true for Greer Olson. When she returns to her family's summer camp years after an unthinkable tragedy, Greer is confronted by a past that she'd rather leave behind. But as old friendships and flames are unburied, so is the truth about what happened on that one summer night that changed everything. Our associate producer, Hannah Gardowski, sat down with Darby to talk about her new release. So let's take a listen.
Now, for those who have yet to pick up a copy of your wonderful book, can you tell us a bit more about the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So you did a great job giving the 30,000 foot there. But yeah, Summer's Never Over, like you said, it's my debut novel. It takes place in 2 timelines. So there's a fire at the summer camp you spoke of 5 years ago that burns almost everything to the ground. And now in the present, our main character, Greer, is back for the reopening of the camp, but also because her mother has just tragically passed away. And so she's forced to return and sort of take a look and think about, you know, everything that led to what happened all those years ago, and then also really reckon with some terrible mysteries about the truth of that summer that she'd rather leave in the past. So she starts investigating with, we'll call her a frenemy from that terrible summer to kind of try and find the truth. And as she does, more and more secrets begin to appear. And so, yeah, it's a mystery thriller, more of a character-driven, kind of slow burn, spooky story. So, yeah, I hope you'll give it a chance.
Oh my gosh, yes. And now I have to know, what first sparked the idea for this book?
Totally. So I like to say in my first life, I used to be a middle school teacher. I taught English for 5 years. And during that time, you know, my favorite part was teaching creative writing, just narrative. And I loved that piece of it so much. I loved everything else, but that was really what I gravitated toward and spent a lot of time focusing on. And, you know, so for me, one of the things that I really liked to use to teach kind of the creative writing process in terms of building tension and, you know, having things kind of ratchet up slowly, you know, for these 6th and 7th graders that I was working with. I thought scary stories were such a fun way to teach that. They're so engaging. They're so interesting. Everybody, you know, every 13-year-old loves a scary story, right? And so we focused a lot on that. And every year as we were writing stories, just invariably, the setting of a haunted summer camp would always kind of pop up. And I always just thought that was such a fun idea. And it just kind of stuck with me for a long time. And then when I wrote a few other things before I got to Summer's Never Over. But when I really wanted to, you know, write a kind of more about like a high concept mystery that had a pretty clear setting and, you know, have that setting really be almost like another character within the book, the thought of the summer camp just kept coming back to me, and then everything sort of went from there. But yeah, it started with the setting, and you know, I have had my own experiences working at summer camps back when I was like in high school and college. So I actually met my husband when we were working at a summer camp together. So I had that piece of it too. So that all kind of came together, and yeah, it worked out.
Well, I feel like this is the perfect book for this season of summer because we're about to enter into Summerween, right? So,
Oh, of course.
what better time for a
Right.
thriller? So, one of the things that your book, I think, captures so well is how a single span of time or moment can make such an impression on our lives. Why do you think those formative seasons stay with us in such a tangible way? Because you really see that. I mean, to be fair, your characters they're going through it in the book.
They are.
but why do you think that is?
I would say, like, another big part of this story, of course, I just talked about the summer camp of it all, but I really love writing about characters in their 20s. And you go through so many changes in your 20s, right? Like I said, I started my life, my career as a middle school teacher, you know, when I was 24. And then now, almost 10 years later, one, I'm writing books, so that's pretty cool. But I'm no longer a teacher. I have a totally different career. I live somewhere different than I lived 10 years ago. And so many elements of my life are so much different than I may have thought that they would be a decade ago. And not for anything tragic, like in Greer's case in this book, but something about that, about just the way that things change and how, you know, the things that we think we want for ourselves and for our lives change and twist. And, you know, there may be things that you end up doing with your life that you never would have suspected or you never would have even thought about. I just think that that is such an interesting thread to pull on. And I think it lends really well to this genre specifically, right? Like this one tragedy that changes everything and just has these lasting effects that continue for years and years. And also, you know, don't want to give any spoilers, but if you read the book, you'll find out that there are other, you know, tragedies that have happened in the past at this camp that similarly created long-standing, lasting effects that, you know, changed the course of other people's lives. And so all that to say, I just think, you know, there's such a fun way to to pull at those strings of, you know, one thing that changes the rest of your life. And I think your 20s are really ripe for that.
I think that's so true. And I, you know, picked up on a theme you just mentioned, which is that I feel like a lot of times the best fiction often explores this tension between who we are and who we want to become. Can you talk a bit more about how that theme plays out in the journey that we see with your characters?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, you know, there's four main girl characters, or young women rather, right? We see them when they are in their early 20s, and then several of them we see again in their late 20s. And, you know, that was really important to me to tell that story, because I think for women, young women especially, I know myself included, I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to get everything right so early on and figure out, you know, I've got to do this and, you know, this has to happen and this has to happen and this has to happen. And, you know, you're like, make your 5-year plan, make your 10-year plan, and make your 20-year plan. And I just think that I'm not saying that that's inherently bad, but I think a lot of the time what that leads to is, you know, again, young women putting so much pressure on themselves to get it right so early and not to make any mistakes. And yeah, I mean, just that you're not allowed to change your mind. And, you know, what I really wanted for Greer in this story, so much of her journey is letting herself be comfortable with making decisions that maybe weren't the decisions that she would have made a long time ago, and also might be decisions that not everybody is going to be happy with, you know? But at the end of the day, like, you know, your life is your life. You only get one, right? And so I think that was something that was really important for me to tell the story of in this novel.
Friendship's really at the heart of this story, and I think many readers will recognize that experience of reconnecting with people who once, you know, knew them best. What was it that you wanted to explore about the friendships that endure or those that don't, particularly when they're put to the test the way yours are in this story?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I think most, if not all, of my favorite stories, favorite books, favorite TV shows have a lot of serious female friendships at the heart of them, for better or for worse. Oftentimes it's for worse. But you think about like the Pretty Little Liars or like the girls in Gossip Girl, which are some of my favorites. And those stories, I just have such an enduring appeal to me. I gravitate toward them so much. So I always knew that was going to be a piece in this. But I also just think too that so many women, and probably men too, but women especially, because we're so good at making friends, right? I think so many women can relate to this, like, moment in your life where you become so close to somebody so quickly, and it burns bright. And again, sometimes that friendship, of course, lasts. I have plenty of friends that I met during a summer or during a quicker season in my life that I'm still friends with. But sometimes those are just they happen because of circumstance or where you are, and it just ends up being that maybe you're not as close after that for whatever reason. And anyway, I just think exploring that is so interesting. Just those friendships that, like I said, burn so bright, so fast. And I think that, really diving into like the potentially dark underbelly of that is really interesting. And for people out there listening, when you read the book, you'll know what I mean about the dark underbelly of some of those friendships in the book, and, learning, thinking that that this person that you've met, that them so well, so suddenly, and you're like, oh, this is my soul sister. Like I can't imagine a time when we wouldn't be best friends, and then kind of seeing that change. I think that was something that I had a lot of fun with in this book, and really wanted to dig into.
Well, speaking of dark underbellies, I was going to say, every writer, I feel, we're talking about Pretty Little Liars and Gossip Girl. Every writer has a different relationship with secrets. And I was wondering, when you began writing this book, did you know exactly what would happen, or did some of those revelations kind of emerge as you worked through the draft?
Oh gosh, I would say almost all of them emerged as I wrote the draft. It's so funny. So my writing style, which I kind of figured out trial by fire during this process. I mean, the first version of this book, of Summer's Never Over, I honestly don't know if there is even a single paragraph in the finished version that was in that first version. That's how much it has changed. Like, the setting is there, the characters are there, and sort of the overarching, premise, I guess, and what Greer is going through at the beginning of the book, that all stayed the same. But so much of it changed. I mean, gosh, my final showdown at the end with I'll say our adversary, that changed so much. I had so many other ideas for how I wanted things to work out. And, people always say, like, your characters kind of like come alive, right, throughout the writing process and start, telling you things and making decisions of their own accord. And in a lot of ways that happened during this story, where I started to be like, oh, no, this person is actually like totally on the right side of things. And it's actually this person that that wants things to be bad. And I'm being so vague on purpose, obviously, because I hope people listening will pick up the book.
I was going to say, we don't want to spoil anything for anybody.
Yeah, no spoilers, right? But all that to say, it changed a lot. But I think that that's fun, because I think that this is this final, published version of the book. I'm so excited about it, and I'm so proud of the way that everything comes together. And I think that if I didn't, have those original, like, other versions that weren't quite right, it wouldn't have gotten to the finish line in the way that it did. But yeah, all that to say, it changed a lot. And there were quite a few nights of me, like pounding my fist on the desk, being like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about all of this? But it worked out.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So as you were putting together this book, were there particular films or music or even other books that kind of inspired you or helped you to shape the tone and spirit of Summer's Never Over?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll start with music. So I started writing this book a few months after the Taylor Swift album Midnights came out. And so there were quite a few songs on that I was like, oh my gosh, yes, especially Midnight Rain. I listened to that song so many times. And, for folks that haven't heard it, it's about a woman struggling with, leaving her kind of like small town life behind and kind of her first love behind, which is very true to the book in a lot of ways. And so that was definitely a helpful song for me. And even when I listen to it now, it brings me back to like the first, few months of working on this book. So I love that. But in terms of other books, yes, so much inspiration. Some of my favorite authors that I, have read through their books multiple times would be like Megan Miranda, Ashley Winstead. They tell such great stories. I love Ashley Winstead in My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, which isn't very similar to the book at all, but in the sense that it's, a group of friends years later kind of, coming to terms with a tragedy that broke them apart. And, part of the reason that I ended up sticking with the summer camp thing, like I mentioned earlier, is because I feel like a summer camp is sort of a summary version of a dark academia story, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Those kind of books, like campus books, to me at least, I'm a very seasonal reader. So for me, campus books are very like fall, wintry, like you're wearing a big sweater and, like,
oh, stop.
Like
you're making me wish it was October already. Seriously.
I know. Yeah, we're here. It's like, as we're recording this, it's like 90 degrees outside where I am. So yeah, totally.
Same. It's so warm here in Idaho.
But anyway, I think that for me, I wanted to kind of have like, what's the summary version of a dark academia book, which of course, again, campus mysteries are some of my favorite ever. And so all that to say, so that was a great source of inspo. I love the book, The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware,
yes.
which again has nothing to do with this book at all, but I just remember reading that a couple years before I started this book and being like, man, I really want to write books like this that like surprise me in this way. And so, yeah, I'm a fangirl of so many great authors that have such great stories and such great twists. And so trying to emulate, all of them in any small way is what my goal has been.
What do you hope stays with readers after they finish that last page?
Yeah, I think what I hope stays with readers is that, I've kind of touched on this in a couple ways, but my biggest thing is, that it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to change, the course of your life, come what may. And I just think that that's like such a needed reminder, not even lesson, but just a reminder for women, I think, that will be reading the book. And so I hope that lives in there. I also think that a lot of this book is about grief, right? There's a lot of Greer is not only grieving her mother, but she's still trying to process the grief around her friend Stephanie, the counselor who died in the fire 5 years before. She's still working through so much of that. And so I think, a lot of this came from an honest place for me. I lost my dad when I was in high school. So, a different time in my life, obviously, than where Greer is at. And almost 2 decades ago now, but so much of it I pulled from such an honest place, I think, because there were so many times for me and have been throughout the years where I've felt like, what is the right way to grieve? Like, how do we, how do I live in this world where this person that was so important to me is no longer here? Like, how do I keep moving forward? And so I think, another piece of that is, it's okay to struggle with that and not have to feel, perfect all the time. I think that that's one of my overarching hopes for people reading, is that they remember it's okay to not have to, again, be perfect all the time and to please everybody. Like, at the end of the day, do what makes you happy and find ways to move forward and, not cause harm. And I think that's kind of all we can do. So that's my little TED talk on that.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Now, before I let you go, what's next for you? Can we expect to see another book in your future?
Oh my gosh, thank you for asking. You absolutely can. So I will be coming out with another book next summer. And so be on the lookout for that. I'm deep in that world right now. It's very interesting to be working on that book while I'm talking about Summer's Never Over so much. I feel like I'm in so many different headspaces at once. But yes, another great book. I'm not going to give too much away. But I will say that in Summer's Never Over, as I've been talking about, and is, just the focus on the female friendships, some of them good, some of them not so good. You're going to see a lot of that in this next book, even crank it up a little bit higher. So that's going to be a big focus of it. We've got some romance, and we've got more, women in their 20s trying to figure it out. So I think that that's very quickly going to become a staple of the books that I write. So be on the lookout for that one. I'm very excited to be able to talk about it in a few months, hopefully.
And that was our associate producer, Hannah Gardosky, talking with Darby Bozeman about her new book, Summer's Never Over. You've been listening to the Idaho Matters podcast from Boise State Public Radio. To stay in touch, you can find quick Idaho daily news every morning when you subscribe to the Connector podcast. Are you subscribed to this Idaho Matters podcast yet? Make sure you're following so you never miss an episode.
So you can't see this, but hopefully you can hear it. Behind every Boise State Public Radio podcast is a team working hard to bring you stories that matter. So if you value podcasts like this one, please support them. Hit donate at boisestatepublicradio.org. Thanks.